So, we're here today to talk about our micro session from the Reflective Coach module. Here we've got...
Hi, I'm Chris Ogden.
I'm Joe Scargill.
Harley Clark.
Harry Cameron.
So, what was our session based around on the 27th of November?
We were looking at ways to improve players passing in basketball.
I was looking at improving dribbling in basketball.
I was looking at passing and the agility of movement.
So, what parts did you all have in the session? So, we'll start with Joe.
Well, I took the warm-up for the session. So my aim was to improve the participants' basic skills whilst dribbling in basketball, agility, balance and coordination.
Who did the next activity?
I did the main activity and we basically played piggy in the middle, trying to make sure that people could pass the ball accurately and they were moving in like all different directions.
Chris?
I did the final game of the session. It was mainly looking at the movement and the passing of the players.
And I did the session analysis, so that's what I did. Right, so the warm-up, how did you think it went, Joe?
Overall, I think it went well, although there were a few minor issues to deal with. Two of my participants were talking throughout the session, which I could have dealt with perhaps if I'd have considered a disciplining technique on the person, or maybe splitting them onto opposite sides.
So, reflecting back on it, what would you change from the off in that situation?
Well, from the off, because I was playing an offensive versus defensive game, I could have introduced bibs to separate the two and basically make it more apparent who is doing what.
Okay, that's good. Continue.
Obviously, with the two people talking, like I said before, I could have potentially just asked one to go on one side of the line that they were stood on, the other to go on the other side, and that would prevent them talking to each other. I did notice in another session a guy was on his mobile phone during the session, which thankfully didn't take place in mine.
Right, so what did you, Chris and Harry, what was your involvement in Joe's part of the session?
There was limited involvement from both of us.
Yeah,
it was basically just watching out for people trying to cheat or, for example, like being dangerous while playing. Because obviously with older students, they're not they're too rough when they play.
From the outset, I'd have said that a negative for all three of us were we weren't involved in each other's games.
Yeah, we could have looked at assist the one leading the part of the session a bit more.
Yeah, it did seem to be like I get mine out of the way, then you get yours out of the way, then you get That's...
So basically, we need to follow up on Nicholas Erhard at 2014, who said it's essential for teamwork so a session can function. Do we all agree on that?
Yeah, I agree.
So Chris and Harry, if we could do the session again, reflecting back on it, how would you change Joe's part of the warm-up? So what would your involvement be? So setting out the games earlier, being a bit more involved.
I think we could have helped him by, say, if there was any participants that didn't know what they were doing, for example, we could have helped by explaining the rules individually to them so they understood what they needed to do and when they needed to do it.
Harry?
I think basically we need to set up earlier. I think if everybody had been more organised on the day with the groups that we knew which participants would participate in ours and which would participate in the other group on the other side of the sports hall, would have been a lot better. But because there was multiple people signing forms and being stood around doing nothing, we was confused about how many people we'd actually have, which made it hard for us to do actually a warm-up, so to speak, because we were thinking who we were actually going to have.
But thinking about that, if you was to do a coaching session in real life, you've never got a guaranteed turnout, and one day there might be 10 kids turn up and the other day there might be 25 kids turn up.
True, but there won't be everybody stood there at the side, if you know what I mean, they were all signing medical forms. So half our people
in fairness to the game, it did involve everyone. There was nobody going.
No, but on the other side they had 20 and we had 9. It were unfairly balanced, and that's probably just nothing to do with our problems, but
I think the game itself was flexible enough to adhere to small numbers and large numbers. You know, I mean, you could always just make the surface area bigger if you wanted more. I'm talking to myself pretty much, or I could make it smaller, you know, or less.
One participant did say that if there was more people, you could have used the whole sports hall, so the game would have not only been bigger, obviously would have lasted longer.
That's fair.
Right, so that was a brief roundup of the warm-up. Main activity, Harry?
I thought it went pretty well, just the area wasn't big enough, and basically I wasn't confident enough as coach, which Woodman and Hardy 2003 said self-confidence is a key variable in association with sports administration. So like when I was sorting out the games, I wasn't as confident. I just put them into like groups and said, yeah, go with your mates. Whereas I could have split them up and then say by like height or get them into a line and do it by numbers.
So basically, you yourself and the group seemed confused at the session.
I'd say it were a confusing session, but
so looking back on it now, obviously we had time to think about it. How are you going to change in the future?
I think it's more I needed to plan my session more. I did, because nobody was going to improve their performance with the session that I planned. So as Chris Field at how 1996 says, the ability to plan and organise effective and meaningful coaching sessions and programme is vital to improve performance. So in that, nobody would have really improved what they didn't already know.
I think from what I got wrote down anyway, when Joe was finishing up his warm-up, there was a little 2-minute awkward phase because you had not fully set up the session, so the class were obviously restless, and that could have affected why they were talking, messing about during yours. So maybe if we get it planned out straight away, like why Joe's doing this, because there was a big space for you, obviously.
Like a smooth transition.
Yeah, so we can just go from one part to the other. So.
Touching back on what you said about you just to get with your friends and group, you said you could have split them up. I thought what you did by making them go with their friends, I thought that was a good idea, because Bailey Cope and Perth 2013 suggests one of the main factors of why a child participates in sport is through the friends and the peers. So by grouping the friends together, they're going to have a more pleasant experience of the sport in general in your coaching session. So I thought that was a good point.
Yeah, it could also have contributed to the messing around a little bit, because if you were your friends, like, you're more likely to
Does that not,
try a bit.
I think that's more of an issue of the discipline and not.
Yeah, possibly.
Christina Moses, 2014, believes that you should give timeouts, removal of privileges and social reinforcement as moderately to highly acceptable depending on how people are behaving. So for example, we obviously had the 2 girls in ours who were very talkative to say the least, very opinionated, but they were getting involved with the session, so maybe splitting them up could have been the wrong thing to do, but at times they probably needed to be split up throughout all 3 parts of the session. So Chris and Joe, did you have any involvement whilst Harry was doing his main activity, or?
Once again, just to reiterate what happened in the warm-up game.
Minimal influence, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I aided him setting up, but that was just because of the.
It was split into 3 groups, so you know, Harry was concentrating on them all. We were sort of, I don't know, being vigilant of 2, but that's all we were doing really. It wasn't direct involvement.
What I got wrote down actually, to contradict you there, Joseph.
Really?
Chris did go off and set up his drill in time, which left him obviously not having the same problem Harry had when he was rushing to try and set it up, so I thought that was very good of you, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then Joe, you were standing still a bit, but as you mentioned, what I could say you could potentially do is go around the groups and encourage, because that won't only help the groups, will help Harry as well, so he can focus on the people who are messing around, not doing it right, etc.
Yeah, that's fair enough. As Tarun said in 2014, this facade of uninterrupted success suppresses the harsh reality that failure is a common and ultimately useful occurrence. Basically, meaning that we have to learn from our mistakes. You can't go through all your sessions, they're not going to go perfectly. You know, these mistakes make you a better coach.
And that is why we are doing the reflective coach.
Spot.
Main activity, Christopher?
I thought it went relatively well. However, I thought that I could have probably explained what they each had to do a lot better, because there were quite a few people that didn't really understand the game, despite being quite basic, I thought. But overall, the game went well. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves, which was one of the main aims of the session that I wanted to try and get out of it.
So one of your key aims was to put the warmth and the main activity into a fun game at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, so Joe and Harry, did you think that's the right thing to do in a coaching session, so incorporate the warm-up main activity in the final game?
Yeah, I completely agree. Rochelle said in 1990 that the use of games in training is based on the premise that the greatest improvements in performance occur when the physiological demands and movement patterns replicate the demands of the sport. And that's exactly what Chris was doing. You were putting them in a game scenario, and you know, rather than running against cones, for example, they were running against real life players.
Harry, any thoughts on what we just mentioned?
Nothing really, just other than the end session went really well, linked in with everything, and it basically just led on from what me and Joe have been doing, which is always good because
It took dribbling and passing into consideration.
I thought as a whole, the whole session really, it went quite well, because we weren't only teaching them the basic motor skills of the sport, as in passing, dribbling. We were also teaching them a bit of how to think about the game as well, because without them realising, because in a game of basketball you would have to move and try and get free all the time. So
It's sort of breaking it down into
consciously we was
those.
making them do it, and without realising they would then therefore replicate it in a game.
So you would say that the session overall progressed from warm-up, main activity, game?
Yeah.
An argument with this is from one of the participants who said that they didn't understand how it was progressing. However, what you just said there, with that you break it down, so it's like teaching games through understanding. So you teach them the skill and then they go off and do it, and then in the game it all came together at the end. And I thought you did a good job at the end, Chris.
I thought we put in some rules as well, because during then we started making rules for the basketball and stuff, and started using some actual game life rules that you can incorporate, and it educates them on how to actually play basketball instead of just saying, oh yeah, it's another coaching session.
Yeah.
I've learned something.
Goyakla, 2004, said the coach should not only concentrate on teaching the basic fundamental skills, but also help each player understand rules and strategies. So by implementing those rules, like you can't move with the ball, that did reflect some without them realising they were actually learning the rules of basketball.
Does everyone think they got 100% effort out of all the participants?
No. I thought I got about 75% out of some of them,
Yeah.
because others, some were interested.
Yeah, some of
Like I had
them.
group of lads at the end, and like two groups that were interested. Then I had a group in the middle that didn't seem interested, just wanted to mess around really.
How do you think you can change that then in the future?
Obviously by getting them more involved, like in the games. So as we were playing, they didn't seem like they wanted to be involved, but that was just my personal opinion. But obviously as a coach, Bowes and A. Jones 2006 said, it is widely recognised that sports coaches operate in social and often ambiguous environments that place varied and multiple demands on them. And obviously if you're working with your friends and your uni colleagues, you're going to be stuck to try and motivate them, because they're doing the same course as you and they're on the same level as you, so they're thinking if it's a bit too low level, like I'm sure if we took part in some sessions, I'm sure like we were looking at some of them like, we've been able to do this since we were like 10.
Well, what would you do differently though? Like,
I'd have probably made it into like more of an invasion game,
right?
but obviously with the way the session was going, it wouldn't have fit in.
Okay.
Good leading on to the final session. We just have to change some things up.
Swinnon said in 1994, the degree of cognitive effort appears to be associated with a level of skill learning. Basically, sort of the amount of fun they have and the more they're enjoying it, the more likely they are to take on board what you're saying and learn. So, you know, perhaps like watching one of Harley's sessions in previous weeks, you know, he really engages the participants and creates, you know, a fun environment, which, you know, tends to get 100% attention a lot of the time.
This is in, I don't know the word, this is contradicted, is that one?
Yeah.
By Paula Drosescu in 2014, who says, coaching is the process of only establishing objectives and identifying the paths and means for achieving the objectives. So this could, in a way, be disregarding the fun aspect to him. So
I'd agree with that at elite level, not
Yeah, if you're at kids level, you're not going to say, oh yeah, you're coming to do this, you're coming to do that, and then you're going on.
yeah. The core values in the sessions we were doing were participation and fun. You know, the skill acquisition sort of comes first.
at the final
Yeah.
aspect of it. It's fine.
Yeah, the Wazy in 1995 does say that when teaching basic fundamentals, that you should make the hard work seem like fun, so it would more engage the participants.
Trudeau and Gilbert 2006 said decades of coach education and certification clinics delivered almost exclusively from a traditional teaching approach may have given us millions of knowledgeable coaches, but the research shows that we have done very little to nurture that development of coaches. So basically it's saying that you could put a coach through all the exams you want and they might get 100%, but if they haven't got the natural gift of being a coach and being someone that can grab the attention.
It's all
And
for
do that.
experience.
It is,
I'd say,
so like if you look at like many people in our course have got plenty of like awards for coaching, but not a lot coach outside of university.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd say us four all have coached outside of university in the last year or so.
Yeah,
So
it's
we're
doing it
used
on a
to
regular
it.
basis. That's what, you know, keeps you on your feet.
Whereas some people like in our session probably haven't done it in that long.
So would you say, if we planned out our session and went into, for example, a local primary school or local high school, would our session have been better after
Yeah.
we'd have feedback on it the first time to look back on it for the
Oh, yeah,
university
definitely.
students?
Yeah.
I think it'd have been better with younger audience as well.
Yeah.
So is that the planning of the session? Because we all knew that it was going to be university students, so should we have done a session for university students or for kids?
With the skills that we learn, I think we should have done it for kids.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah, considering the skills were so basic, you know, it did seem like it was a session built out for, you know, 4 to 8 year olds, something like that. So, yeah, I'd say kids.
Harry, any thoughts?
No, I just thought we did it for too young of age, but obviously with the session, it was one of those where like you want to do it for kids, because if you're going to, like, I know I coach at like a high school level but a year 7 level, so I'm used to dealing with kids, whereas people my own age I'm not used to coaching. So for me it'd have been weird, because it's not going, they're not going to find it enjoyable if it's just doing drills.
So in the future, are you going to try and look into coaching people at an older age, or are you just focusing on the
At the minute,
child
I'm
sport level?
focusing on the child sport level. I'd say like most of us would rather do that until we get a bit more
I suppose.
confident.
If an opportunity sort of arose to test yourself, then yeah, I'd take it on board.
Yeah.
But as a,
Yeah.
you know, as a full-time sort of profession or occupation, this would definitely be far more suited to people at a younger age. Just what you were saying about going into a primary school and doing it, with the modifications we've been talking about, you know, now that we've had a chance to reflect on it and given it a first go, I think it would be a very successful session, because, you know, we know what mistakes to make. We can expect similar things from the children, obviously not exactly the same because they are a different age group, but yeah, I think it,
I
you
think
know,
I think it would go relatively well. It would be much better, especially because we look at the mistakes that we've made in the previous session and implement the additions to like the planning. We'd plan it a lot better. We'd be organised. We'd be more involved in each other's sessions.
Would be set up from the start, basically.
That's it, yeah, with transitions between
Yeah,
each.
would be
Yeah.
would be a lot more smoother.
Paul Payne, 2011, does say that the key to planning for the coach is to ensure that the tactical and skill fundamentals are developed and coached in a logical but easy to learn manner. Would you all agree?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally, yeah.
So, to break down some more positives and negatives, I'll go around and ask your best positive from your part of the session and then the main weakness. So, for example, what I wrote down for Joe was maybe at the start 3 people were on and there was only 9 people, so it's going to be quite easy for the 3 people on to catch the 6 people.
Yeah, I do.
So we'll
It's
start
one,
with
of, it's one of the first things I wrote down. The main mistake from my session was I began with too difficult a task for the offensive team. You know, that has to be put down to pot planning. You know, on reflection, starting with one defensive player like I did in the next game, and it ran smoothly afterwards.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, the damage had been done with the first session. But that's what I had done different. As a positive, I suppose when I was communicating with the participants, I did sort of tell them what it was we were working on. You know, I made sure they knew it was the ABCs that we were particularly focusing on in the session.
I agree. I wrote down that you did give informative coaching points once the game changed, and you did get a very positive reaction. They all wanted to carry on playing. Then obviously when your time slot was up, they were a bit disappointed because once they got into the game, they actually enjoyed it. But at first, there was a few complaints going around.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I should have planned it better, or I could have had used more of the area at hand. Yeah, and then.
So next we'll go to the main activity. Obviously, Harry, what was your main positive?
My main positive in the coaching session was that people seem to be enjoying themselves. But with everyone enjoying themselves, there were a few that were got up to a point where they were getting too giddy and giggly, and then they were just messing about. So after as the enjoyment comes, so does the laughter and all that.
So would you say turn your positive into an extended positive, really, that you still want to have fun, but you need to show that you are more serious as a coach? So
yeah.
One of the things I wrote down is when you got them all into the groups, they were all around you, and then you said, oh yeah, go into threes and then go into a square. What you could maybe do is keep them all in close to you, and then you can explain it face to face, so you don't have to shout all the way over there.
I think that were just nerves, because it were a bit nerve-wracking when you're working with people at your age and you don't want them to be like criticising you.
So would you do that differently?
Yeah, when I'm coaching, I'd usually do it like that, but obviously because it was a bit of a rush on the day and we weren't set up or anything, it was just all thrown together at once.
So I think if you did keep them together as well, it would give you a bit more time to set up as well, because we could have been doing the setting up whilst you're talking, but when you said go into the squares, and squares weren't ready.
So obviously that is the 3 coaches.
That's a good point, actually.
We need to communicate more.
Yeah, that's it. If we'd have discussed beforehand the layout of each of our sessions, then us, the coaches leading the sessions, wouldn't have had to do any of the setups. You know,
that's just a bit of communication on our part as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just before the session, 5 or 10 minutes going over it. It would have made the transition smoother because the coach would have been talking, but the other 2 would have been saying it.
So was that also your positive, but the negative as well?
Yeah,
you got another negative to look into.
Well, negative would just be louder, but that's also down to nerves.
So projecting your voice.
Yeah.
Do you think you could interact with the participants more, say, when they were actually doing the game? Obviously, you said you had the troubled group, who I obviously noted that down, that some of them were giving a bit of abuse towards the game, so you obviously spent most of your time in that area. Would you try and engage them more? So say, maybe put a challenge in there, so say, if...
Well, I put a challenge in for him and they easily got it, because the guy in the middle, he just didn't seem interested at all.
Yeah, so I mean, put a forfeit into the guy, so if he don't get it in 5 throws, he has to do 10 star jumps.
Well, I could have possibly put a forfeit in, but the guy in the middle wasn't interested all day. He was the one that, if anyone, he was the guy that didn't want to be there.
Well, Hermione Jones in 2011 said, each coach has to be mindful of many factors when he or she interacts with athletes. worth noting is that all the participants are different, you know, different backgrounds, different reactions emotionally and stuff. So, you know, sometimes a discipline would work. Other times, you know, if you were doing a forfeit, perhaps it might embarrass that person, you know, say if it's somebody of a weaker character. So it's, you know, it's just worth taking into consideration who it is you are, you know, sort of disciplining, and whether they can sort of take it on board, or whether, you know, whether it might work in a negative way.
I suppose obviously the being university students, we spend most of our time with them, so
Yeah.
you should potentially know their individual characters. So,
Yeah.
for example, we have Jack Jeffs, who is a very outspoken guy, so you could I reckon he'd be up for a challenge if you would have put one on him, because I'm pretty sure he was in that group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, he was on the end group. It was. I don't know. He was doing
Just putting that into what we'd be doing at a primary school, you know, well, I presume in the scenario we're speaking, this would be a school that we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
You know, we're all aware of the children and how they all individually react to certain things. So, I mean, like you said, you know, we know the participants involved. Could be directly mirrored by the potential scenario of this session.
So, Chris, we'll move on to your final one, the game. What was your main positive, and then also the negative from that session?
I thought what I was trying to implement went relatively well. I thought it did, despite some people and participants not really understanding how it progressed. I thought the passing and moving game did move on from Harry's pig in the middle game. I thought another good positive of it, the age group that we're in right was children, so I didn't really focus it on a winning and losing. I just told them that's the objective for both teams, and I didn't really count the score, and there wasn't a big.
So you didn't emphasise the result?
No, not at all. I thought that was one of the aspects that I didn't want to do because of the age group was that I wanted everyone to be involved and everyone to feel like they were being successful. So
they were all part of the session.
Everyone that did a good pass got well done. Everyone got treated the same.
Yeah, as I
like
said,
rewards for movement, not results.
I did write that down every time. For example, like Natalie, Lauren, Danny, Jack, Sam, they did good passes, good play. You did give heavy praise towards them, which is obviously a positive. However, there was one incident where you tried to stop it to further explain the rules, because I believe that you thought that they understood. Is that right? Like when you explained it the first time, obviously sometimes you never know. Some people might not be listening.
Yeah.
And then what you did was you stopped it, and then you tried to explain it when they were all out, and then you started again, and then they were still like, oh, like, what do we do? Which then, I don't know if you know you did this, but then I thought that you figured out that they didn't really understand you from the distance, if that makes sense, and then you called them all in, and then explained it again. Does that make sense? So I thought that was a very negative into a positive.
When you're coaching, would you say you use more of a direct role, so you're sort of telling them what to do, or would you say, you know, you invite questions?
I thought, on this occasion, I did just tell them what to do. I didn't really ask them why they were doing it. I should have told them what they would need to do, instead of what I did was just tell them. I should have said, what do you need to do in order to achieve this goal? So that would have probably explained the rules within itself, because the rules were what I wanted them to do, but they didn't quite understand it just because I was telling them.
I do think,
thinking about.
I was saying that at the end you did call everyone in, you went through exactly what you learned, so you asked an open question like, how will that help you in the future? And then obviously you got responses like it worked on agility, balance, coordination, so they all interlinked, and then you finished it off with a game. So that part was good, done well, Chris. So feedback from the group I wrote down here. So for Harry's part, Natalie said that she didn't understand how it progressed from Joe's game to your game, because obviously in Joe's game it was a big area and you was basically playing Tig, Bulldog Tig, you had to stop them by touching them, really, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then your game went into small coned areas. How big would you say the coned areas were? Probably about
not big.
8 by 8,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
So she didn't understand how it progressed, because obviously going from half a sports hall to a tiny area, would you say that your session, you needed to do your session to progress the game, like interlink with the game? Because obviously,
Well, yeah, we need to do my session to interlink with the final game, because you need to get a ball involved, you need to get them working with the ball and the movements with the ball.
Yeah.
so maybe you should go out and say that you just learned how to move in a big area. Now you've got to learn how to move in a smaller area, and obviously get past players with smaller movements.
Well, obviously with Piggy in the middle, you've got to keep the ball away from this invasion game again.
In defence of Harry, to be fair, although they are two different games, they were linked together in the final
In the
game.
final game, it was more of a, this is a motor skill and this is a motor skill, and then
Put them together
Put
and
them
you
together.
go.
But like you say, perhaps it wouldn't have done any harm, maybe discussing beforehand, sort of, you've been in a big area, now you're in a small area, and later on we're going to put that into a game scenario.
What we could have done as coaches, we could have set up all 3 drills before. So you could have had Joe's there, Martin there, and then Chris at the end. So just as an idea for next time that we're all set up well.
On the space we used, I'd agree with that, but on reflection,
Yeah.
I'd rather have used a bigger space for mine.
Yeah.
The sizes that we used, that idea would have fit perfectly.
Perfect.
But on reflection, I'd rather use a bigger
area.
Yeah.
I thought as well at the start we could have just explained, when we was explaining your drill, we could have explained Harry's then, and just told them the layout.
So a clear introduction to the session. So a bulldog, Piggy in the middle, then we'll end with a
what was going to
handball.
happen in the game.
So another feedback was from Sam, and this was for your part, Joe, and he said it was alright,
Right.
but productive and informative, which, as I mentioned before, you did put in some informative coaching points, so
I'll take all right.
did take positivity from that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's taken something away from the session. Perhaps I'm more likely to draw on, when he says all right, I suppose he means it's so-so.
Yeah.
So I could have been more engaging. I could have made it more fun. If I had been more organised, the game would have run smoothly. And those are the things I would change. But overall, core values of progressing the agility, balance and coordination, I think I told them that, and they were fully aware that they were doing it during the session.
I think, like I said, it's informative, and that suggests that he has actually learned something from your
So
drills.
learn what the ABCs mean, learn the
I think
coaching
that's
points.
a good point to take.
Another one was from Lauren, and this was for you, Chris, and it was just a one-word answer that the game was fun.
Well.
So, you achieved one of your aims. Another one was from Tom for the same one, was the game was unfair at the start, because I think there was 9, so you had 5v4.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously you counteracted that by, obviously Harry started playing, which did even out, but then obviously you lose a coach. So he thought it was unfair, but would you think about changing the game in any way to make it fairer without adding a coach?
You could have a floater, a player who
both teams.
plays for the team in possession. Yeah.
Do you think that would have, so you could have potentially put who you thought was performing the best as the floater, because then they would get more of the ball and then keep developing the skills, or you could put someone who you did think was kind of understanding it.
I would have put someone who is of a lesser ability in the middle, because at the end of the day they're the people that need more work to be done. So if they're getting more of the ball, then surely they'll improve at a faster rate.
Good. And then final one was from good old Nathan Green, who says that the coaches need to go around encouraging instead of standing still all the time, which
I totally agree.
you did all mention. However, there was at times, like in Harry's game, you did step in while Chris was saying, you said, oh, that was good, etc. But maybe some people might want an arm round and tell them how good they are.
No, it was very minimal from me. Yeah, it was. I think that was it, to be honest, for what I said. So yeah.
I think we're all
I think that was just a
I think that's criticism of all of us though. We all weren't as encouraging as we should have been.
What Nathan said is absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
So, Zhu Shuhua says that playing experience contributed to game enjoyment. And reflecting back on the coach's feedback that I got, especially from Chris, who thought that they did enjoy themselves as they were smiling. So would you judge enjoyment through smiling?
I think that's one of the ways of like observing if someone's having fun and they wouldn't start to learn.
And then Chris, before we even had this discussion, did point out that you did need to coach more of a team. So did you think when you were going through the session, Chris, that you should step in, maybe stop everyone and say, oh, let's all get together and coach together? Or did you just let it plan out?
I thought during the session there was clearly someone who was leading it.
Yeah.
I thought we should have, before the session, we should have all got together and said, "Look, if you need any assistance, just tell
Let
us,
you know.
let us know and we'll be there and we'll understand it." So maybe a bit of organisation, communication beforehand would have eradicated the, like, us just standing around
So-
not really doing anything.
Do all three of you believe that if you three were all doing basically the session together, so all helping each other, they would have been more engaged? So if the coaches are engaged, would the participants
We
be
had
more
15
engaged?
minutes beforehand to discuss with each other and plan it, and then, yeah, definitely.
So they would be more
I
engaged, yeah.
think them looking at us surround
Get them bad body language,
it
maybe.
made them like, if they were
It
their
influenced them to
role
do the
models, then
same.
that they
Yeah.
just copy us.
Why would they do any different if the coach who's supposed to be, you know, teaching and
The
inspiring is
encourager.
doing exactly the same thing?
So one of the points you made, Joe, from the feedback was that poor planning did let you down. So obviously going forward, how long would you now take after doing that session to plan a session?
I'd say sort of writing the session and planning individually what was going to happen an hour,
Okay.
and then beforehand discussing with the coaches, you know, showing them the drill. So maybe beforehand I could, you know, email it to you,
Yeah.
so you can take sort of half an hour to look at how the session goes, and then, you know, we'll know each other's sessions inside out, so we can sort of organise it whilst, you know,
Whilst-
you're delivering, or, you know, beforehand.
Vice versa.
Yeah.
So you thought that basically, if you could have had the 10 minutes before to show Chris, show Harry, the session would have transitioned smoothly from warm up, main, game,
Yeah,
and it would have been
100%,
perfect.
So yeah, I think it was just a lack of understanding on the other two coaches' behalf of what was actually
Going on.
going
the
on
game.
in somebody else's.
And then with extra planning of the sessions themselves, individually as a coach, it would have improved as well.
So final one, Harry. You did say that your personal performance, as you mentioned before, you could have spoke louder and then you could have had a bigger area for your game. But you also mentioned, which I thought was interesting, that you wish you would have put a better actual game. Can you think of have you thought of any games which you could have used?
Not in the time that I've done, but I just thought, like, if the area had been bigger, I thought that we could have done like a 6v6 on it, because then that would have, well, if we'd have had more participants as well, but a 6v6 and then it had prepared more for the last game as well.
Also a bigger game, but
A
players at all.
possession-based game though, like,
Right.
instead of actually scoring a point, they had to get a certain amount of passes and execute like certain types of passes. So say they had to do 3 bounce passes and then 6 overhead passes.
Right.
So and then 2 chest passes, so it'd look better
Yeah.
on those that we're teaching them more things that they can use in basketball, because obviously there's a different amount of passes. And then you could also add a dribbling factor into it. But
Considering the requirement of the session was to fuel the basic skills rather
Yeah.
than actually, you know,
full on
sort of-
skills.
you know, I know it doesn't seem complicated to you and I, but you know,
Yeah.
the
To a
younger age,
that's it,
it's-
different types of passing.
Everything they've
Yeah.
got
You
to think
know, we
about.
just had to keep it as
Keep it
basic as possible.
yeah.
Get it down to the core movements.
What I put down, because I thought it was quite good if you would have progressed the session. So say for the first 2 minutes you obviously would have done what you did, but then progressed it to maybe a bit of competition, so they weren't just staying with the same group. So say whoever you said you had a disinterested guy, take him out of his group with the friends. So if he's not interested with his friends, maybe he might be interested when he needs to start talking to people
Yeah.
to engage who he doesn't normally
Or
speak to.
like you said, as a floater, you know, if it was a disinterested person,
Mm.
you know,
If he didn't want to defend, then make
That's
him.
it.
If he enjoyed just attacking, then
Yeah.
give him that privilege.
and
of
if
just
they're
attack.
constantly in possession, then he's always got to be focused.
We could have joined 2 of the squares together and then put 2 people in the middle against 4.
Yeah.
So we could have just taken 2 corners out of it and just let them go like that.
What I also wrote again is part of the competition that most of our people at university live, breathe football, most of them, probably about 80%. So what you could do is maybe, you've obviously got the 3 squares, so Champions League, Premier League, Championship.
Yeah.
So you could progress and then they're like, oh yeah, let's get to the Champions League. 'Cause even though we're all 18, 19, 20, 44, you could
Still a competitive aspect.
still competitive and you all build up. And then even when you get that with the smaller children, they're like, oh yeah, let's get to the Champions League.
Yeah,
And
you want to be at the top.
Yeah,
don't
you're
you?
loving it, aren't you?
It's not as if it's genuine, real
Yeah, that's a
competition.
good idea.
It is sort of, it inspires fun, you know, rather than being a genuine
Yeah.
sort of hard-fought competition.
So, last pointer before we wrap this up. If you could do one thing differently, you can't pick the same thing, what would you do, Joe? Let's say you've already mentioned the planning, you've already...
I'd work on disciplining.
Okay.
But it's like I said before, you know, each person is different. You have to know how far you can go whilst talking to someone. You know, for example, a forfeit may embarrass one person, but it would, you know, it would successfully. That's it. So like it was Lauren and Natalie talking amongst each other. On reflection, the best course of action would have been to split the pair up. Rather than a forfeit, just put one on one side of the line,
One on a different
one on
team.
another, yeah. And
Or one of them on and then one of them
that's
play.
it, yeah. And then,
Laura, they did the same in mine because they was working together in mine, and that was the group that was always talking and always
yeah.
messing around. So if we'd have split them up like from the start and then just left them slow,
That's it, yeah.
we could have been alright. Instead of like when I said you go with your friends,
Yeah.
split those two up and then put
And
them
then,
between
and then
them.
it's not making a scene of it in
No,
that
it's
case,
not.
you know,
It's
it's just a sole way of, you know, creating less talking over the top. Just
Yeah.
So, Harry, your one thing you'd change again looking back from reflection?
My thing would have been to be more positive body language wise and be louder. As Colin says, he says the main aim of a coach is to be the understanding reflected a dictionary definition, namely having admirable, pleasing, superior or positive qualities. So he's basically saying as a coach you've got to be positive.
Okay.
And like have qualities that are going to get your kids and get your students involved, which I don't think my body language did as a big effect on like what I did.
So what body language would you use next time? So
I'd
would
be
you go
more
around positive?
encouraging, have my a different voice tone.
Okay.
So set out for like, say if I were doing it for kids out more like anchored towards like being fun and entertaining and keeping them all involved.
Okay. Tris, final law.
I think it would have to come down to the lack of communication between coaches. I thought the communication between coach and participant was relatively good. I thought everybody addressed the participants in the correct way and used like good language for the age group that we were aiming at. But I think between coaches, I think there was a breakdown in communication. I thought that if we communicated together, the whole session as a whole would have been a lot more successful.
We could have probably been more of a team than individuals
Yeah.
because we look like 3 individual coaches that were teaching 3
Yeah.
different groups, whereas not like a team of
rather
coaches.
part of the coaching out.
Yeah, we just looked like we were there for like the 5 to 7 minute slot that we did,
I think it could be.
and then
So I do think at the end, when obviously I came in and then they were all in a circle and we asked, obviously for feedback, it was all quite positive feedback.
Yeah.
Because obviously you don't want to,
I suppose it would be, you know, if it's in front of the coaches.
you're never going to put them down, are you?
Yeah.
But would you say, how else could you think of acquiring that feedback if you wanted to know potentially the real feelings towards it? So say that's either
This is with the participants we used or children.
the participants we used.
Right. You could set up an online survey which is anonymous. You know, just a brief sort of, you know, maybe the size of a tweet or you know a little bigger than that. You know, just a brief overlay of how you thought it went.
just a quick question with your description would have been good enough. So, did you enjoy the session? If so, why? And then like another
So say
2 questions after that.
What would you have done differently? Or
Yeah.
what would you want the coach
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do differently rather?
So are we all happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.